All right, thank you, Simon. It's great to be here, and I'm going to run through some slides about building Helacious, which is a Dix 43 pilot house cutter made of aluminum. And so I'm going to run through the slides, and then we're going to take questions at the end of my part, questions about boat building, and then Helen's going to run through her slides. So I guess the first question is, why would you build a boat instead of buying a boat? And my simple answer is because I wanted to build a boat. And that came about over a very, very long period of time from my kind of childhood fascination with boats that we would see. We went up to Maine and saw the lobster boats, and I just have always thought boats were really interesting. And my dad built a couple of wooden boats, and we sailed around on the lakes in Kentucky. And that was about it until I met Helen in the late 80s. And one of the things that we kind of both wanted to do more of was to go sailing. So we started building a little wooden Herreshoff boat, and then started building a house and had kids, and life intervened. So we bought a boat, a McGregor 26, on a trailer, hybrid power sailor, and had a lot of fun with that. Then we bought a Caliber 28, proper keel boat, but still it was on Kentucky Lake. Um, and at that point, I realized we really liked the sailing part, and we wanted a bigger boat. And so various events led me to the discovery of metal. I was already a metalsmith, and so when I discovered that you could make a small boat out of, first I discovered you could make one out of steel, and then aluminum. I was like, okay, I could do that. And I started doing all the research. I bought all the books. I bought this many books, about a meter of books, and learned all about the technical side of things. And so we spent a couple of years looking at designs and narrowing it down. And then I realized that there was a method of cutting the material called CNC, or computer numeric control cutting, where the boat is lofted or drawn in to scale on a computer, and then those parts, it shows all the parts. Um, that's us. Uh, so if you look, well, down here in the lower right corner, that's shows the frames. But you can leverage the computer design to produce cut parts, which have a very, very high degree of accuracy, to about half a millimeter. Uh, and so not all boat plans have this, and a lot of times the boat plans of that kind are very, very expensive. You can spend upwards of $30,000 just for the cutting files. And I didn't want to do that. I found this Dudley Dix design. I like the design. He's South African. He grew up sailing in Cape Town, um, and there have been a number of these built in Cape Town, and they're very capable. They've been to Antarctica and they've been to Greenland, and so it kind of fit the bill. The numbers, I went over all the cord lengths and everything. The design was approved by me from an engineering standpoint, and then there were cutting files available. So I pulled the trigger, and we ordered the plans in December 2008, and they were delivered then to my workshop in near Memphis, Tennessee, in June of 2009. And it was, as it says here, about 4,400 kilograms of the special marine grade aluminum. Um, so why is aluminum so good? It's because it develops a natural patina of very hard oxide. Um, so that protects the metal. Um, the marine grade aluminum has more magnesium in it, which helps to make it more elastic. So it is less likely to actually puncture, like if you hit a log or a container or a boat hits you, um, or the dock, which is the more likely scenario in our case. Um, it will deflect and bounce back because it's so elastic. Um, and so it makes and it's easy to weld once you have the right gear. It takes a specialized welder. Um, and but it's easy, it's fast, it's lightweight, so moving the panels around is easy. You don't have to have a crane for most of the parts. So anyway, we got about 400 different parts, and a lot of the less obvious parts had numbers or letters scribed into them, um, by this machine that cuts them. So it was a kit basically, and so I had instructions. Uh, connect part A to part B. We had, if you look here, the board that I'm kneeling on doing the welding here is actually what I call the loft floor. It's some plywood or MDF panels that have these lines incised in them, which actually represent the outer edges of all the different the 13 different transverse frames of the boat. And so it's a matter of lining them up, and welding them together into these frames. And this is one of the frames that has the keel floor in it. So the keel is integral. It's not a bolt-on keel. It is a completely a part of the structure of the boat. Um, and so, first step was to build all these frames and then set them up on what's called the strong back, which is a big steel flat plane, and you use a common reference point to level everything out. The parts actually have the design water line indicated on them, which is really handy. I didn't realize that at first. I was like, what are these little holes? And then it was like, oh, that's useful. Um, and so I was building this. I built a shed roof behind my workshop. I guess I need to explain. So my business for since 1984 has been making various art, architecture, and design objects, from furniture to big or gates and railings to sculptures, and primarily in metals and primarily in hot metal, a lot of forging and blacksmithing, but also glass working and glass casting, and also woodworking. So I was in a good position skill wise to do the first part of the boat, which was to build the hull. So the hull, I say it kind of built itself because the parts all fit together in a kind of preordained sequence, and because they had been computer cut, and somebody had actually built this boat from these files before, I had confidence that it was all going to work out, and it did. It was the files were marvelous. They cost me about, I think I spent 4,500 euros to rent the files, and then it cost me $3,000 to have all of that aluminum cut at a factory in New Orleans. So the total outlay there was not huge. Uh, the aluminum material itself, I think I spent 22,000 on. So I was into this. I could start this for about $30,000. And so that set me up for really a couple of years where I didn't have to buy anything else. And we had plenty of opportunity to uh, do all the work because this was right after the financial crash of 2008. Um, so I knew my business was going to taper off. Um, so yeah, this is now we're putting in the longitudinal stringers. Those are the long, skinny pieces. Those are made of quarter by six. I mean, I'm sorry, quarter by two T or 6 by 50 T. America still hasn't gone metric. Um, this is the keel, uh, which is probably the most difficult part of the metal work because it's a NACA foil shape. So it's a pretty specific shape that has a tapering uh, conical curve at the front. So that took quite a while. And I worked with a factory I knew down in the industrial part of Memphis to help me with some of that bending. I don't have all those rolling machines, but they were happy to just charge me a hourly rate, and I was able to work with their technicians. Um, this is my beautiful wife and handy set of hands. This is the first bit of plating going on the side. Um, and this is, we call this the top sides plating. And I actually welded these. There's three separate pieces that I welded together on the ground to do this piece of plating. And that worked out. That was amazing when I was lifting this up to that it fit the bow so well. And so bit by bit, piece by piece. How do you eat an elephant, right? It's just one piece at a time. And then the radius chine plating, that's this boat is rather unique. Ted Brewer, a Canadian designer, developed this technique of using radius pieces to connect the top sides and the bottom sides, uh, and produce what appears to be a round hulled boat without having to use an English wheel to roll those plates, because it's easy to make a single curve in a piece of metal, but much, much more difficult to make a compound curve. So these plates just are rolled kind of top to bottom there, but they are not rolled, they are not bent fore and aft. And the way they go together is there are 15 of these plates. They all have 1 meter radius, and they all have different lengths, and they all have different widths to fit between the top plate and the bottom plate. But they're still flat and sort of segmented. The trick is to weld them fully on the inside, and you use the weld shrinkage to pull those joints down, and that smooths out the hull. And it's one of those that you got to have faith. And my hull turned out very fair, except in the one spot that I simply couldn't believe that it was going to work, and I helped it along, and that went too far. So there's a little dip in one spot, but it was a remarkable technique, and a lot of welding, but quite quick, without having to invest in a rare machine, the big giant rolling machines. Anyway, so there's the hull all plated up, and it's like, okay, now what? We got to turn it over. So at this point, it weighs about two and a half, about 2,500 kilos. So I did it by the spit method, like a roasting spit with a pipe on the bow and a pipe on the transom and a hydraulic jack system. And we spent a day flipping it over. Um, had some friends over and family helping. That's my oldest son, Jake, on the right-hand side there. And so the boys really, another son is 2 years younger than him. And I mean, they're both men now, of course, but it really affected them in a positive way watching this project. And I learned later they sometimes complained about me dragging them in to help, but it was a great thing for them to see. So I was working all during this time. I was in the studio making things for other people, and so I just would work on this in the mornings, and then so yeah, there's the blank canvas, right? And we got the interior of the boat. The hull is pretty much done. Um, and that took what, 16 months, um, and I don't remember exactly, 1,200 hours, 1,600 hours, something like that. um, I've got about between 10 and 12,000 hours in the finished boat. So when I say the hull was the easy part, that's what I mean. Um, it had some physical, difficulties. It was hard work, but it didn't represent that much of the total percentage. And it only represented about 10 to 15% of the total cost. So, yeah, building a boat doesn't save you money necessarily. But you end up with a very, very sturdy boat. So here's our engine and generator, and the insulation, which is very important on a metal boat. And the nice thing on a aluminum boat versus a steel boat is you don't have to paint the inside plating. It's not gonna rust. Um, and I used the white stuff is a special ceramic microsphere insulating paint that's in an acrylic polymer. It was kind of developed by the Navy, and it's quite expensive. It's not too hard to work with. It's super sticky, but it insulates all of those nooks and crannies where the black EPDM foam insulation you can't apply, and it stops the condensation. Um, the places that are bare aluminum right now, we're in London, it's quite damp and getting cold, and the bare aluminum, as you know, will drip around your overhead hatches and places like that. But where this white Mazcoat DTM is sprayed on, it's dry. And then, so this, as I said, this is EPDM boiler insulation, which I really like. It does not burn, it does not absorb moisture. It's easy to install, and so I'm very happy with that. This is where we're starting to build the interior and laying, this is where I'm on my own. The plans come with a little bit of kind of schematic of an interior, but a metal boat is kind of like a metal building. The only kind of structural part inside is that mast compression post that you see in the middle there, and all the rest of it, you can put bulkheads or not, wherever you want to. It doesn't affect. They're not vital to stop it twisting or for strength. They're simply for dividing up the interior. Um, so we did a sea chest through the keel here. So the central sump divides. On the left are the diesel tanks, and then to the right in the forward part of the keel are the water tanks. They do come up above the keel and spread into the bottom of the hull a bit. Um, and then so this is our water raw water intake on top of the sea chest. Sea chests are really nice because they reduce the suction pressure, so you're less likely to suck a bag or a jellyfish or seaweed into, like, there's no kind of 1 inch hole. There's a grill a 100 by 150 millimeters on the outside on both sides. So the suction pressure is less, and there's a redundant side as well. So I'm really happy with that. And this is where all the or most of the condensation water drains down because we did not insulate below the water line. Although why, I'm not quite sure at this point. I think one could insulate below the water line with the DTM and the EPDM. But that'll be for the next boat, right, Helen? um, so I kind of like my apparatus. And we took there was a midships berth on Dudley Dix's plans that we converted into our workshop and an engine room. So we added this generator, the white thing there, which is a 9 kilowatt 3-cylinder Kubota. But I also put in more fuel tanks and a day tank, which you see kind of to the upper right, and then a massive filtration system. So we filter fuel going into the day tank with a 30 micron Raycor 500, and then it comes out through a 10 micron Raycor, and then it goes through the 2 micron, which is mounted on the engine. And then I can also polish fuel between tanks. We carry about 800 liters of fuel, which has been a really good thing when we get out in the horse latitudes north of the Caribbean. You get into that high pressure, and it's like no matter how you plan, it seems like that thing it catches you, and you got 3 days of motoring or a week of sitting there. So that's been good, and so this is then the interior woodwork, kind of a sequence showing I had to kind of develop my methodology. Never built the inside of a boat before. So how do you trim it all out, make it look nice? So I chose mostly 4 millimeter and 6 millimeter Okome marine plywood for the overhead and the hull lining, all with filleted epoxy joints. And I used a pre-catalyzed epoxy paint, which has been unbelievably good. It's a Sherwin-Williams product. It's not a marine product, so it doesn't cost a lot. It's really easy to paint on, and it is super tough. So that worked out really well. The wood here is called Spanish cedar, and because I had been doing woodworking for years and years, it was really the first way I ever made money was doing woodwork, and so I've always collected wood. And so before this project started, I had bought an entire inventory of this Spanish cedar from a lumber company in Memphis that went out of business, and it turned out to be a fantastic wood. They make cigar humidors out of it because it does not absorb water. It is super stable, and it's very pretty and very lightweight. So that was good stuff. This is the galley, and that was, of course, between the galley and the head, those are difficult areas to design. We spent a lot of time mocking this up and using, cardboard boxes and drawings over photographs. And this is kind of before the iPad was around for sketching on. We've got a fridge and a freezer, 2 different Seafrost units driving those. Been really happy with Seafrost. We have a Dickinson Mediterranean stove, nice deep double sink, and so yeah, the galley. We expanded the galley over the original plans as well, and that was definitely a good move because 2 of us can work at the galley, and it's also fairly secure. There's not you're not standing in the open at sea. Wiring, like in my blog, wiring takes up like one entry. In reality, wiring took like a year, or more. I mean, it was ongoing, but it's not very photogenic. Um, but it got I had to stay very organized, and I'm not always very organized, but everything is labeled and actually produced a huge wiring diagram, which has been really useful. But now with all the changes over to lithium batteries, when I was doing this, lithium batteries were not a thing. You had lithium batteries on your cordless power tools, and that was about it. Um, and so, that's putting in all that gear. We're thinking about lithium. Right now, we still have AGM batteries, and they're in the under the sole, right beneath that Victron blue Victron Multiplus, and so that's kind of an ongoing should we or shouldn't we kind of lots of discussion there for years. Um, but yeah, that's all worked. And the first time I kind of turned it all on, I didn't let any smoke out, and that was very satisfying for everything to work, and then to put the boat in the water and test it, and not have electricity in the water. So yeah, it was good. I took a class, an ABYC basic electric technician class, and even though it wasn't a proper certifying test, I took the test and passed the test by 1 point. So a pass is a pass. Um, so that was, I enjoy wiring. I mean, way more than plumbing. Don't do plumbing well. Um, yeah, no, so now these are some pictures of the exterior. We did these companionway doors, which we really like. They have deadbolts, and the sliding hatch all locks up, super secure. Um, and I'm a bit security conscious, being from Memphis, and my workshop used to be right in the Midtown area, and it was always, well, lock your doors, and so we've been happy to have this. Be able to lock up easily so that when we leave, we can just shut it. It's also very sturdy. We've never had following seas board the boat, but after last night's, we went to the CA's talk. Fellow had deployed his Jordan Drogue, and said, "Yeah, they're great, except you're going to get pooped every 5 minutes." So he was glad to have his watertight doors. So anyway, that's a good detail. Um, yeah, so we're testing out the cockpit table here. Um, that's really the only wood on the outside of the boat. I guess there are two trim strips up there under the hard Dodger. And so we love our hard Dodger is vital, in my opinion. And I love standing in the companionway there when green water is coming over the bow and or coming over the side there, and it's like somebody's throwing a 5-gallon bucket of water at my face. Um, Helen's pointing out the handhold, which is perennially shiny from grabbing the handholds above the binnacle compass there. Um, and you can tell how much it gets used because it's all shiny, instead of dull gray. The cockpit's fairly deep, and it's fairly wide, and it has this wonderful serpentine seat at the helmsman seat, which is great for when you're heeled over. Although we don't sit and steer very much, we use our autopilot just all the time, and we really rely on that. It's a B&G we have a Jeffa Danish steering system. It's a transmission steering system, so it has a planetary gear and a drag link, rather than cables or chains, and it's extremely robust. And the autopilot motor connects directly to that planetary gear, It uses very little power. I'd highly recommend looking at the Jeffa stuff. Um, we have glass windows in the pilot house. They're 10 millimeter mineral glass, and they're set in an automotive fashion, the same kind of Sika material, and they were made by a transport glass company. We also then have polycarbonate storm shutters, originally kind of to be installed offshore or during a storm, but we quickly realized that wasn't going to work, and they're just fine on there permanently. They're attached, and you can see um, these holes here on the right on the roof of the pilot house. We don't have any through bolted hardware on the deck or anywhere on the boat, on the outside of the boat. Nothing. There are no penetrations. Everything, all the hardware, like there by my feet, um, that's the Genoa track bolt holes. All those are screw bosses welded in with blind holes that have a special helicoil. It's called. It's a threading device that is actually dielectric. It's coated with polymer that prevents galvanic corrosion between the aluminum and the stainless steel fastener. So you thread the hole, you screw this little wire coil down in there, and they work. And they're also screw locking. They're called helicoils. They come from the aircraft industry, and they're remarkable. So that's how the storm shutters are held on, and all kinds of deck things are held on. Plus, we can weld on the deck because that insulation does not burn, I discovered, and it's safe to weld on the opposite side. So yeah, I like my. We painted the bottom. Uh, uh, this was a lot of work. My shoulders got really strong because I had to. Part of the process, and it was a three-step process, was to grind the hull to a fairly coarse profile, and then apply the etching primer, and then 5 coats of epoxy barrier coat, and then we put 3 coats of this is Petit Vivid paint, which has turned out to be pretty good for the aluminum. So yeah, that was exciting because I was nearly finished. Um, when you paint the bottom, you know you're getting close. So Helen did all the canvas work and upholstery on the inside. Um, and we're still using the same Bimini fabric 8 years later. It's Sunbrella. And we like just the plain Sunbrella rather than the coated. The urethane coated seemed to get kind of moldy or something on the inside, didn't breathe properly. Um, yeah, and so that was marvelous with our Sailrite sewing machine. And Helen is, I don't know where you learned how to do that, but sewing clothes, she said, okay, handy to have. Because I can't do it. It frustrates the heck out of me, the fabric moving around and stretching. I can build out of anything except fabric. Um, there are 42 doors on Helacious, and they're all lap joint frame and panel. This is the kind of wide angle interior shot from the companionway, and kind of before we filled it with stuff. You know how that goes. So up here on the right-hand side in the middle is our navigation desk. Um, I no longer have the free-floating chair. I have just an old drafting stool bolted to the floor. I'm still looking for a chair. Um, the middle part of this design of this boat, it has a very shallow canoe body shape. The bilge is not very deep at all. The good thing is it has a very small wetted surface. The bad thing is there's no room in the bilge for the engine. So the engine is partially covered with this cowling where this center uh, seat is. Um, and so that, it's just one of those things, right? We work around it. And it was funny. I used to say, that when I built this chair, this seat here, I was like, well, I don't really care if it's comfortable. I'm never going to sit there. Well, guess who sits there? Like whenever we have guests, guess I'm the one. I'm the one in that seat. So I did modify it and give it a little more angle. But this works great. We keep watch a lot of times at night by sitting over here on the left, kind of wedged in, and then we have two 12-inch MFDs, and we can see the radar and the AIS, and as well as some Maritron wind instruments, and we can keep the companionway door open. It's not exactly being outside, but it's when it's two people, our feeling is you want to stay comfortable and warm and dry and not wear yourself out in the elements. Which yeah, I'll show you our enclosure in a minute. This is the workshop on the left with our Dickinson stove. Um, and I love having the workshop. It's constantly in use, and because that's just who I am. I like to tinker. It's also kind of the galley annex. It seems like our toaster has found a permanent home over there, and it's just really useful. Um, and then middle picture is looking aft. Those stairs flip up and lock out of the way, and there's a kind of pathway to get to the port quarter, where we have our water maker and a washing machine, and the steering is accessible there, or the gear, the rudder is actually behind a watertight bulkhead. Um, and then on the left-hand side of that picture is down in the quarter berth, which is our sea berth. And then another picture of the galley and looking aft. Oh, and Helen's pointing at the draining rack above the sink. That is
My
a
favorite.
top feature of Helacious. Yes. Uh, all right, and then this is the transom with swim platform and our handy dandy davits lifting device. Excuse me, lifting device. I really like our swim platform being able to step off the dinghy um, right onto there. It's very safe. It's also a good place to, when we do catch a fish, which we occasionally manage to land one. It's a good place to get down and gaff because we don't have an aft deck. I get a little envious of some of the center cockpit boats that have a aft deck there, but we like our boat enough. Yeah. You always look at other boats, right? And go, well, they've got, that and this and that. So, yeah. And then we got ready to launch. We had a little party, and my friend, the priest, came and gave us a blessing. And we had, I don't know, but 50 people came by. So that was terrific. Then the trailer came, special truck from North Carolina, um, and lifted us up and carried us up our driveway 1,000 feet to our little narrow country road. And it had rained the night before. And so all the tree limbs were hanging over the road. So I rode on top of the boat up to the freeway. And then we went to Pickwick Lake, 110 miles to the east, which is part of the Tennessee River. And that's where we launched the boat there and spent the next year rigging the boat. We had the mast, but we hadn't done the rigging or ordered sails or anything. Um, so we hauled it out again in the fall and put the mast up and got the sails over the winter. This is a side view of the boat just to talk about a couple of the kind of safety features we encourage. We put triple lifelines that are about 36 inches or about 900 millimeters high. Um, and I know why people put lower lifelines, and it's because they have deck sweeping Genoas, and they need that angle. But we don't have a deck sweeping Genoa. We have, it's not really a Yankee cut, but it's a fairly high cut. The tack or well, the clue is fairly high, and so the sheet clears the lifeline. There's one place where it will rub one particular angle, um, and if I have to, I can put a tweaker on that. But generally, it doesn't make any difference. So high lifelines keep me on the boat, and I use those things. I love those. I strongly urge people to think about that as a offshore safety improvement. Same thing about granny bars or technically a mast pulpit. Um, I built some very rugged ones that I can climb on, and because otherwise I couldn't reach the top of the sail cover. We have very heavy sails, and I couldn't reach them from the deck. So they're super useful, and I go up to the mast to reef. We have traditional slab reefing, so I have to go up there, and I've never felt unsafe. Um, we have handholds all over the place, and we have center jack lines. We do not have jack lines running down the side deck because you do not want to fall off and be dragged alongside the boat. So center jack lines are extremely important, and these run. I can stay clipped in. I have a dual clip or dual tether, and I can stay clipped in all the way to the bow with no problem, even with the dinghy on the foredeck. So yeah, enough of that. But it pays to think about all those. Staying on the boat is the most important thing. Man overboard, good luck. Yeah, our cockpit enclosure. As far as two-handed sailing, where you don't have a big crew to rotate through and relieve someone, well, autopilot and cockpit enclosure. Um, we arrive, after a passage, and I won't say we're fresh as a daisy, but we're not worn to a nub, and so it's not a racing boat. Yeah, sure, okay. Sometimes it's a little awkward, but I mean, I am not trimming my sail every 10 minutes. I just don't do it. Um, so I think the benefits far outweigh the inconveniences. We even convinced our friend Charlie, dyed in the wool, no Dodger, no enclosure, Scotsman. He cruised with us for a week up in West Coast around Skye, and at the end of the week, he was like, it's not so bad. When it was blowing about 30 knots into our face, Charlie was sitting sunning himself. So that was nice to see. So yeah, let's see, what did he do? 46 minutes. So question time.
So, guys, do you want, if those in the audience want to either put an electronic hand up and I will get you to open your microphone when I see your hand go up, or put a question on the chat. There's some comments in there from Behan Gifford. So, Behan, let me just find you on the screen and I'll bring you in. Allow to talk. Yeah, no, just a comment from me about the only technical thing I can comment on is the lithium. Go for it. You won't look back.
Okay.
Behan, do you want to come in?
Hey, it's Ian. I just I was just throwing in comments as we could see them go by. Jamie and I are just sitting here enjoying watching the build unfold. It's super cool, you guys. It's a beautiful boat.
Thank you. Thank you. And we appreciate your input, Jamie, about the sales. They've been beyond compare. We've had them detailed and so told that, gee, these look like new. So they're holding up beautifully and performing better than advertised. Yeah.
Awesome. Great to hear. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we love that
Thanks,
picture
Brian.
at the beginning.
Right. Right.
We've got a question from John Morfitt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Beautiful boat, wonderful build. I really appreciate your workmanship there. My question is, it looked like you had plenty of space in the stringers to add more insulation. Would you do that if you were building again, or was this adequate?
Well, I did add after that picture, I added another inch of insulation, but there are those holes through the frames for wiring and conduit, and that really limited in a lot of places what I could do with the insulation. So because I needed those, I was going to put the the hull liner against the frame, and so at a certain point there has to be a place for wiring. So that's it was a balance between those two things. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm just going to bring in Robert Orr there. I'd just like to comment as well, Brian. We have a deck saloon, and we fitted the polycarbonate covers too, which was supposed to be temporary, but they're on all the time.
Yeah. Well, and you appreciate them when green water is slapping at those big windows.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not fragile, but they're, sometimes you kind of think, oh, okay, yeah.
And it's acting a bit like double glazing
Right.
while we're here in London.
Well, ours is even more than that because we're obviously in the tropics, so we've actually got canvas covers on the outside, so we've got like triple glazing. Yeah. I think Robert Orr wanted to come in. Robert, can you go ahead?
Looks like it's muted.
Robert, you should be able to open your microphone if you want to. Robert put a chat in the chat line saying beautifully seaworthy and thoughtful boat. Congratulations on your achievement. It's an amazing achievement, Brian. I have to say, Brian and Helen. Did you do Airfix kits as a kid, or it's kind of the ultimate IKEA project, isn't it? It's sticking.
Yeah, right. No, it was, and that was
beautiful.
I didn't really say that, but as a maker, it was sort of my magnum opus. I wanted to build something that took everything that I knew and put it together, and then required me to learn a lot of new things as well. But that was part of the reason, was just to be a really challenging project. And it was, it was, but the satisfaction, and then we got to go sailing, and I could never even see myself. I could see myself going to the Bahamas. That's as far as I knew. It's the only place I had ever been ocean sailing, which you can hardly call Bahamas ocean sailing. And so it was like, I kept visualizing that. I certainly didn't visualize Norway. That was, I had no concept. So yeah, it was a kind of a strange thing for a fellow in Tennessee to do. And I'm glad it worked out, because otherwise it would have been a disaster.
So Robert's saying apologies about his microphone, which is misbehaving, but he has got a supplementary question you can see there, saying, now that you test the design, what would you do differently next time? And the second question is, would you reconsider steel?
No, I would never consider steel. I mean, I've built plenty of things out of steel, and but yeah, so no on that one. Uh, as far as the overall design of the boat, of the hull, that Dudley Dix did, there is nothing that I would change. It is an amazing boat. I might put a skeg rudder instead of a spade rudder. We've never had any issues with the spade. The spade is massively overbuilt. The plans, I mean, he's designed it with both. Um, but I can see, especially in ice, that a skeg would be a good thing. I don't personally plan to get into the ice, but somebody might later want to if they acquired this boat. No plans to sell, but time moves on. Interior wise, we wish we had a separate shower stall. That's been the main thing, because right now we shower in the head, which is plenty big, but it gets wet, as you know, and stays wet, especially in the winter. In the summertime or in the islands, we shower on the transom. And so, but for this size boat, I wouldn't give up my workshop, for instance, for a shower. And yeah, there are a few other things I might do different about the nav station. We don't have a settee on the starboard side, so on port tack, we tend to slide off the settee a bit. And I have an arm rest that I can install, and but
It's not worth getting rid of the boat.
yeah, that would change everything in that salon.
One last comment from Robert, and then we'll move on to Helen if we may. But Robert's come back to say, is 44 feet enough in retrospect?
Yes.
Teresa.
You would always,
Fine. Let me just mute this ongoing thing. I think I just did it some.
There you go. I've muted you.
Okay. Yeah, but a 52-foot boat or a 50-foot boat, yeah, I'd be great. But there are times, I mean, especially in Norway, trying to moor at some of the marinas there, you would never get a 50-foot boat. We could barely get our 44-foot boat squeezed in some of those places. And a lot of times there's in that deep water with granite bottoms, there was nowhere really good to anchor. So we spent a lot more time visiting little tiny marinas, they're really designed for 10-meter boats. And so, yeah, I mean, but bigger is faster, bigger is probably more comfortable. But there you got the problem of a bigger boat requires bigger rigging, bigger winches, bigger loads,
bigger checkbook,
extra crew. Yeah. So yeah, this is plenty of room for us. Yeah.
Yes, it's just us two on the boat. So
thank you, Brian. Helen, I think you're going to talk to us about Scotland and
I'll try and kind of flick through things fairly quickly. So anyway, so yes, after we launched, we kept the boat there on the Tennessee lake for about 18 months, and then we went down from the Tennessee Alabama border down through the Tom Bigby canal system down to Mobile Bay, and then we kept the boat there in southern Alabama, and northern Florida for about another 18 months, and that's when we first started sailing on the ocean. It's the first time we'd ever sailed on the ocean, and certainly the first time the boat had. And we took a 3-month kind of test run to see if we actually liked cruising after all this work and effort. We didn't really know if we could stand being on a small boat full time with each other. So it was good to have a quick test run. And so we took the boat for our first ever overnight passage. It was the first of a lot of things, but around Florida, out to the Dry Tortugas, out to the Bahamas, and finally back up to southern Georgia, where we decided, yes, we liked it. So went back to work for another 6 months, and then this is the Bahamas, just some kind of highlights of the getting used to the cruising lifestyle. So then in January 2020, we untied the lines and retired from our jobs, and we've been pretty much full-time on board ever since. We had one brief winter. We went back to Memphis to avoid a winter in Glasgow. But apart from that, it's been full-time on board. And this is what we've achieved so far. So after starting out, we went back to the Bahamas, and we intended then to do a transatlantic at that point, but that's when COVID came and caught us all. So we stayed in the Bahamas for a little longer, which was just fantastic because all the cruise ships left, all the other boats left, and so it's just a few cruises there. It was perfect. But the summer storms started and drove us back up to the Chesapeake Bay, and then we joined the Salty Dogs and did our first OCC qualifying voyage. We went down to the Caribbean then. It was a pretty rough voyage. It was very high trade winds that year, so we had a lot of trouble making the easting in, and a lot of boats arrived broken. We took 13 days, which was fairly slow, but we arrived in one piece, which was nice. Arrived in Antigua. And then since then, we've done 2 more transatlantics, west to east. We left the Caribbean that next year in 2021 and went across to the Azores and then up to Scotland. And again, this year, we've repeated it a second time. So things broke. I think this is an alternator that broke. Brian was fixing, but that's all part of the pleasure.
The fun.
So yes, the Azores, one of our favorite places. I'm not going to spend too much time showing pretty pictures here because I think probably a lot of these OCC members have maybe been there. But coming from the Caribbean, you get back to Mediterranean food, lovely buildings. It was just an absolute delight. There's Peter Sport Cafe, and of course we had to do our drawing on the walls there in Horta. So we've since added a 2024 to that when we came through the second time. This is the Caldera on Fayel. Natural swimming pools amongst all the lava rocks. It's just fantastic. So one of the places we'd like to go back to again and spend some more time there. But what I really wanted to talk about and to try and persuade some of the people that, circumnavigate the globe, but maybe don't go north. They just go around the middle. So I'm going to try and sell you all on cruising the west coast of Scotland and northern Norway. So one of the benefits of cruising Scotland, of course, is all the distilleries there. Isle of Islay has 9 on one small island, so that's quite a place to go. The cruising guides for going around the west coast of Scotland are just fantastic. They're published by the Clyde Cruising Club. There's 5 of them, and they detail every harbour, every anchorage, things to do, places available. I mean, they're just wonderful, and they're absolutely essential for cruising around there. In addition to that, online you can get Antares charts, which are very up to date, very detailed, just of the anchorages, and very reasonable. I think you 22 pounds, and the man that's making them is still adding to them, and so the combination of this information just makes cruising up there an absolute delight. So this is just the obviously the map of the west coast of Scotland. It's only like 250 miles from top to toe, but cruising there could last you a lifetime. Again, our friend Charlie that's cruised up here for 30 years, he's still finding new anchorages. It divides somewhat from into kind of three areas. The southernmost area is a little busier because it's near kind of cities and public transport and so on. But the northern half, and then of course the Outer Hebrides there off on the northwest there, are just very isolated. So I'm just going to flick through some quick photos just to kind of whet your appetite. This is Isle of Sander, just off the Mull of Kintyre, which is often a bit of a rite of passage to get round the Mull of Kintyre because of the currents and weather. But as you can see, we had very calm weather when we were there. Colonsay and Oronsay, some of the islands, the sandy beaches and fishing. People are incredibly friendly. We have gifted all these fish and mackerel and taught how to fish. I think that's where Brian learned how to fish for mackerel, was on Colonsay. Fingal's Cave, Staffa, the classic rocks and the cave that inspired Mendelssohn, and then the Treshnish Islands, which is a puffin colony there, so you can go visit and see the puffins, which if you go early enough in the summer, they're nesting there, and you just walk amongst them. It's incredible. Just near Oban, which is a very good centre for provisioning and getting supplies and things like that, is the Isle of Kerrera, which is one of our favourite stops, where there's a beautiful walk around the island, and Guyland Castle here on the southern tip is quite spectacular. Further north, you go around a point called Ardnamurchan Point, which I think is the westernmost point of mainland Great Britain, and it's a bit of a rite of passage to get around that. But once you go around to the north of that, then the number of boats that you come across diminish quite a lot, and the cruising gets even more dramatic. So it's worth going around Ardnamurchan. Castle Teorum here, which is a castle just stuck out on an island. It's kind of chocolate box beautiful. The small isles, there's a number of small isles there. There's Rum, which has a very large resident herd of deer, which have been in continual study, I think, since the 1970s. Egg, with its very classic rock there rising above it.
Skewer of egg.
Yeah. Mark, I love the name. This is Brian talking to the Laird of Mark, who has since passed away, unfortunately, but he was quite a character. And then, of course, the Isle of Skye, everyone knows about that, with its dramatic hills and waterfall there. So we did have a lot of sunny days, but there are also some cold days in Scotland. You've got to be prepared for that. We've got our little Dickinson diesel drip heater, which works wonderfully. And we also got some serious weather while we were there, but it was nothing too unpleasant. There's always safe anchorages. That's the other beautiful thing about Scotland. Everywhere you go, there's an anchorage within 5 or 10 miles that will kind of protect you from whatever the weather's throwing at you. Go up into the locks or into a little bay. And then, of course, when you get to the Outer Hebrides, it's really remote there. This is the central part where it's quite flat. It gets more mountainous towards the top. And then there's the prehistory as well. These are the Callanish standing stones up on the northern part of the Outer Hebrides. And then that was our summer cruising the west coast of Scotland. We went back quickly through the Crinan Canal, which cuts off going around the Mull of Kintyre, very old hand pushed lock system. So that was quite fun, but we were very grateful to have help. And then we finished our season 2021 hauling out and leaving the boat in Ardrossan. And so that winter we went back. We came back the following spring and picked up pretty much where we left off. And so this is the route that we then did that took us up to Norway, and the second area I'd like to kind of tempt you with, which is northern Norway up to Lofoten. So we went up and left Scotland about the middle of May. We got up to the Lofoten Islands to the north there, the kind of peninsula that juts out, by the middle of June. And then we had guests coming, so we had to turn around and come back. And we've often said in retrospect, we wish we'd carried on, because a friend that we were cruising up in Lofoten with us, he went on up to Svalbard, round to Iceland, and he was waiting back in the west coast of Scotland by the time we got back. So in a summer you can easily do all that, and we say we wish we had. But anyway, this is the route we did. We crossed over from the Shetland Islands over to Ålesund, which is about halfway up the Norwegian coast, and went north from there. These are the cruising guides that we used. The Imre guide is very nice, and then I had some online version of these Norwegian guides, and you can buy various volumes. I think there are 4 available, but to pick which area you're planning to cruise in. And the combination of these two had all the information we needed for cruising. So Ålesund was our port of entry, which it was the middle of May, and so there was still snow on the mountains inland. And Ålesund is just packed onto these few small islands. It's quite incredible. Lovely place to make landfall after, I think, was it a couple of days, day and a night passage. It's not too far from Scotland. We decided we had to go up a fjord. We'd didn't want to spend too much time up fjords because it takes so long to go up them, and then you turn around and go back, and you really can't sail because the wind being buffeted around by the island, the hillsides and so on. But we went up Boy, and I say, with the snow just melting at this time of year, the waterfalls were in their absolute peak. It was wonderful. And the hiking, of course, up in Norway is amazing. They really keep their trails well marked and well maintained, and it was a delight. So then we started making our way north, passing all the different kinds of navigation that you see there off the Norwegian coast, from sturdy lighthouses to smaller ones perched on rocks, to literally just posts coming out of the water. But with the good charts that are available, it wasn't difficult to get around, but you do have to keep your eyes open for sure. And there wasn't, we did as much anchoring as we could, but there was also an awful lot of small marinas every island that we went to, which are very reasonable, maybe €15 a night, and online check-in and payment just made it very easy. So we probably did about half and half, anchoring and staying on small moorings. So this is about halfway up the coast, heading up towards the Lofoten. It's one of our favorite spots, with Sorgeslingen. It's mainly used in the summer now. Originally, it was a huge fishing port, and it still has a lot of the buildings and the structures for drying cod around. You know, they have the sod roofed houses, and which are now converted into lovely summer cottages for people. Torghatten, it's a interesting spot. There's this huge rock with a hole right through it. amazing views of the coastline. And we finally made it up to the Arctic Circle. This is the Arctic Circle monument that we passed on our way north. It was confirmed. The coastline just was getting more and more stunning as we went up, so dramatic, looking inland towards the glaciers and so on. And I think that's, yeah, Svartsen Glacier. This is up another fjord, just south of Bodo, I think it is. The glacier's obviously retreating some, but you could get right up to the face of it. It was quite spectacular. Rodoya, some more wonderful rock structures, and the footpaths. I mentioned it earlier, but they're quite incredible. A lot of these paths up the mountainsides had granite footsteps that apparently they brought in Nepalese workers to construct these, and you saw them in a number of places. It was incredible. And here we're getting up towards the Lofoten. The anchorages are now very isolated. We really didn't see many other boats at all. And we made the crossing over from just south of Buda up to the southernmost point of the Lofoten Islands. And then
and this is where the fishing got good as well.
This is where the fishing got
the cod fishing, yes.
Up to the Lofoten Islands, and then we worked our way along there. We were a little beset by fog, and so after I think about 10 days, 2 weeks, we gave up and went back to mainland. But this is the route along the Lofoten Islands, and they're just so dramatic, rising up out of the water, the spires of rocks.
It really does look like that.
Yeah, it's this is our sunny day, and there we are anchored down in the bay. So there's lots of evidence everywhere, especially up the north, of cod fishing that went on. All the cod was hung out to dry. The heads apparently were a delicacy in Nigeria, so they're sent off there. And I think a lot of the other cod goes to Portugal and Spain. But you saw that everywhere. This is looking down on Henningsveer, another small town, just kind of clinging around inlet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Brian, as he said earlier, honed his fishing skills here. He managed to catch cod quite a lot, and so we had a freezer full of cod, and we foraged for mussels. It was a lot of fun. After leaving the Lofoten, you can see them in the background there. We went back to the mainland, and this is one of our favorite spots there at Stronham. It had a beautiful sandy bay, and one of the few places we brought all these long cables to tie up the boat, thinking we were going to be tying up to rocks a lot in cruising Norway, but this is the only place that we actually did it, and it was just to stop us swinging out of the bay. Someone had to take a plunge in the Arctic waters while we were still up there, so I think Brian went in a couple of times. I just did it the once, but photographic evidence. And yeah, so we're just working our way back south here. We did visit a couple of cities along our way. Trondheim was beautiful. The cathedral is just spectacular, and it's built around a series of canals, so it's very picturesque with the old warehouse buildings being converted. And then Bergen, of course, which has to be the most dramatic place to kind of park your boat for a few days, right in the center of town. And then we came back south. The weather had turned rather foul by this time, so we took a while having to wait to cross the North Sea to get back to Scotland. But we went back across, took a shortcut now down through Scotland, down the Caledonian Canal there, from Inverness down to Fort William. That was a treat for sailing Loch Ness. and the Fort William end is oh no, this is the end of Loch Ness, isn't it? The Neptune staircase.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the Caledonian. Yeah.
So that's a trip through Scotland and Norway. So after that, we did the traditional route back to the Caribbean islands down the west coast of Spain and Portugal. We spent a winter in the Caribbean. The next year, we went up to Bermuda and had spent another summer in cooler climates. We explored Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. Back down to the Caribbean for winter. So that's a third season now in the Caribbean. And then this spring, we came across again to Northern Europe, Azores and Ireland. And we had such fun in Norway previously, we decided to pick up and explore the rest of Norway and the west coast of Sweden. So that's what we've been doing this summer. And now we're back for winter time in St. Catherine's Dock in London. And that's our arrival just about 6 weeks ago. I think we arrived middle of October. So I'm going to stop there.
Yeah.
And
that's an amazing journey, Helen, from a shed in Memphis down a river, a few transatlantics, amazing scenery, a lovely whistle-stop tour of the west coast of Scotland. I admire your Gaelic pronunciation as much as I admire your Norwegian pronunciation. And of course, that wonderful cruising up to the Lofoten Islands and back. Thank you very much. And to finish with Tower Bridge and is that the Shard? I'm not very good on London.
Yes, Shard. Yeah, it's lovely at night. It's all lit up.
And somebody's super yacht. Whose is that? That looks.
Oh, I know. I think that. Well, I don't know that one. There's a new one out there at the moment that's parked. Who is it?
The Dallas Cowboys.
The owner of the Dallas Cowboys is now just parked outside St. Catherine's Dock. So we're definitely in desirable residence.
We're hobnobbing. Yeah.
What an amazing adventure after 7 years of hard labor. Incredible. Fantastic. There's a few hands up. I think I've opened people's microphones who've written in the comments. So first of all, I'd like to go to Marcus, then to Lars, and then to Ralph, if possible. So Marcus, you should be able to open your microphone, I think.
Hi, Helen and Brian. Lovely to see the build and to see you guys again. And it was amazing to see some of the pictures from Scotland and Norway, and we are really eager to sail there as well.
Good. Yes, no, I highly recommend it.
Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marcus. I think next up was Lars.
All right. Yep. Hi, Brian and Helen. Lars on the Seawind here. Absolutely amazing presentation. It was very interesting to see the magnificent boat work you did before you took off. I admire your stamina to do all that work and then still have the energy to go sailing.
Well, I wasn't going to let it just sit there.
No, you see that.
No, but a lot of people has actually. You can see a lot of rusty, especially rusty steel hulls all over the countryside. In some countries, guys been eager to build the boat and they're keen on welding. And then when they've done the welding part, the energy sort of goes out of the project.
Yep. I agree.
But anyway, I just wanted to it's so lovely to see because myself, I am from Sweden, and years before we took off on our sort of circumnavigation, we sailed now for almost 8 years, but we only come halfway. We're in New Zealand at the moment. So we've been doing a lot of north to south cruising as well, and we definitely love the high altitudes. And before we took off, we spent several seasons going over to Scotland and the Shetlands and the Faroe Islands and so forth, and so it's so nice and see those familiar sights again. I just wanted to pitch in one book that we had on board, which is an absolute fantastic complement to the cruising guides. It's a book by a guy called Hamish Haswell Smith. It's called The Scottish Islands. Are you familiar with that?
I think someone showed us that, and we've been trying to find it in the used bookstores. Yeah,
I think it's out of print.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it has everything you need to know about every single Scottish island. And even more interesting is how do you find an island? Well, it's a piece of land or a piece of rock that is big enough to support one sheep for 1 year.
Okay. That's
But
good.
it was really lovely to have because the guy has written the book and he has these watercolor paintings. So no pictures inside the book as far as I remember. It's just watercolor paintings, very artistically made, very good. And it has the history and a lot of information about each and every piece of rock. And so you pass a little island and there might be a house or some ruin or something, and you just open this book and you get tremendous amount of information. And also about Anchorage, because the guy, Hamish was sailing around, Scotland for years and years while he was doing this book. So for everyone who's thinking about going to sail to Scotland, this book is an absolutely treasure for information.
We'll have to look out for it.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that. It's a great town. Lots of history, lots of geography, lots of everything, and some sailing information. It's a very good book.
Lars,
Right.
could you post that on the OCC Facebook page, please? The name of
Yeah,
that book?
sure, no problem. Absolutely,
that'd
I
be
do
great.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're also interested in talking to you about Patagonia at some point. So
Okay.
that's somewhere down the road. Helen's shaking her head.
To be discussed.
Well, I mean, if you love Scotland and Norway, I mean, Patagonia is like Norway on steroids, so you should really do that.
Okay.
No, we're thinking.
And we started our long cruise by leaving the Swedish west coast and then go up the entire Norwegian coast all the way up to Lofoten before we took off to Iceland. So also lovely to see all those places, Torreyhatten and all those familiar places. Norway is such an amazing place. I sort of started to cruise Norway before we even started cruising Scotland because that's my other question. What do you think about the Swedish west coast? Because I eventually got fed up. There are way too many boats, at least in the summer season.
Yeah.
We were warned
That's what we
about
found.
that.
Yeah. We wanted to finish off Norway, and we've heard about how beautiful the west coast of Sweden is, and it is, but it's a lot busier, a lot more developed, and so on. And it really confirmed what we enjoy the most, which is the isolation and the dramatic scenery. So, Brian's joking. Patagonia is possible at some point. We'll just have to work out how to get there.
And I mean about the Swedish west coast, if you really want to enjoy it, because it is spectacular in its own way, but you should really sail there in the early season or after the season, because we have a very concentrated vacation and season in Sweden, also the school holidays. So be there in May and June or in August or later. Then there is almost no boats, but if you're there in July or early August or late June, it's like a circus. So, and all of a sudden, boom, it goes completely empty, and you have the whole archipelago for yourself.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very different though than, I mean, from Ålesund north, the scenery is so magnificent, and it's much flatter around the south coast of Norway and the west coast.
It's challenging. It's just in a different way. I mean, you're
it has
weaving amongst rocks and
right.
so on. It's a different kind of sailing, but anyway.
No, we enjoyed it.
You really have to be careful with all these rocks. I remember when we sailed over to Scotland and Shetland the first time. I had those guidebooks and we were entering an Anchorage somewhere, and it's you have to look out for the rock in the entrance, And I was looking straight down for the cockpit into the water. I said, I don't see any rock, and the rock was like 25, 50 meters away. That was considered a danger. If you sail in Norway or Sweden, I mean, you're getting used to have rocks 2-3 meters away only.
Right. You can almost touch them. Yeah. No, it's
Thanks, Lars. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
All right.
help.
No, and if you want any information, want to talk, or just contact us.
Okay.
We'd love to talk to you
We
guys.
definitely will. Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you, Lars. Lars, of course, is dialing in from New Zealand at the moment. We'll go to Ralph in the Tuamotus. That's a pretty remote place in the cyclone season. Ralph, do you want to come in?
Ralph gone.
You're muted at the moment, Ralph, but you've got your hand up.
Here we are. Yeah. Well, no. I think the hand up was an old one, but yeah, amazing pictures. I'm just stunned by these adventures.
You're a fine one to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we both started about the same time, didn't we? I mean, when did you start cruising, Ralph?
Well, when we met in on the Salty Dog, that was our first, the end of our first season in the Caribbean. Yes, but we've been sailing.
19, we started 19.
We started living on the boat in 19 June 19. But we've been sailing in the Baltic for 20 years before.
Okay.
Doing the west coast of Sweden.
A lot.
A lot, yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So limited area, but a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah. So really, yeah, I mean, our sailing experience really started when we started cruising. I mean, we didn't have that much before. It's just weekend sailing on a lake, and I really don't think that counts. So anyway.
Yeah, looking back, I mean, we should have probably taken, one of these week-long, like 59 North or the Neils, go sailing on the ocean. But we didn't have time or spare cash for that. So it was like, let's do it. And if we don't like it, we'll sell the boat, so we managed. We've learned a lot. So definitely learned a lot. And so yeah, I just have to give a shout out to the OCC for being such a great community of non-judgmental support. We didn't even know about the OCC until we were in the Caribbean the first time, and somebody mentioned it to us and said, "Yeah, you can qualify, and I'll be your sponsor." And we were like, "What's that?" And then it was just such a great group. Well,
we always meet people.
Yeah, so
pretty Anchorage,
so valuable, and all the wonderful port officers that we've met and have been so helpful. So yeah, thanks OCC. We're glad to be able to contribute in our little way here. So
we'll take those thanks, Brian. So anybody who's put a chat on the comment, I've invited them to open their microphone and put a question themselves. I'll go first to my wife, who's sitting about three meters away. Sally, do you want to go ahead?
I'm not sure. Am I actually coming through on the speaker? We're probably going to get a bit of an echo, aren't we?
We can hear you.
Okay? Yeah, fantastic talk. And I just loved seeing the photos from Scotland because we left Scotland with our boat back in 2015. So we haven't actually been sailing there since then. But I think when you guys were on the west coast of Scotland going around Mull, Simon and I were in a kayak. And Simon kept promising me that at some point we would meet an OCC boat that would offer us a cup of coffee. Because it was sort of emerging from COVID, everywhere was closed. And I think every time we saw you, you were just leaving an Anchorage before we could paddle in. So we never quite managed to meet up with you. But superb talk. Thank you so much. That was great.
Well, we're coming across to the Pacific. Maybe we'll catch up.
Yeah, we'll catch you in New Zealand or somewhere.
That'd be fantastic. But I think you're going north next year, aren't you? Back up to the Faroes. So if you are passing our holiday home, so do you want to kill your microphone down? If you're passing our holiday home, then do shout because we'd love to see you. We're just opposite the Gulf of Corryvreckan, North End of Jura.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
18 miles south of 18 miles south of Oban. So we'll be there in April or May. So if you're heading north at that time,
that's near George Orwell's house, right?
Yeah, we can see George Orwell's house from our deck. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. No, that would be fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely
call in and say hi. So anybody else who's got the microphone open or can open it, please go ahead. There were comments in there from Jose and from Sean Gallagher. I'm not sure if any of them want to come in. They're very welcome. You can see the chat line, I guess, Brian and Helen, can you?
Oh no, I can't see the chat line.
I will
right
send
now.
you. I'll send you a copy of it anyway, so you
Okay.
can read it offline, and I'll send you the contact details of the people that have dialed in tonight, so that you can get in touch with them directly if you want to. But lots of great comments on there. Yes, so somebody commented that not all OCC members have been to Northern Europe, so there you go. All the Azores, even all the Azores.
They should.
And somebody, says there's actually 3 OCC boats at the moment in the Madeira Islands, in the Marshall Islands. It just goes to show they get everywhere, don't they?
Right. I see Lars has his hand up again.
I think that's old.
Or is that old?
Yeah.
So Jill wants to come in. Jill, you should be able to open your microphone.
Oh,
hey,
Jill.
Helen and Brian.
Hey, Mike.
We are
How you doing?
we're doing great. That was a great presentation. We missed you. When are you coming to the Pacific?
We're working on it.
Yeah, we're coming the Viking route, but after that we're heading back to warm water. I need to go swimming again.
So we'll come through in March 26th. That's
okay. Well, let's try to make our paths cross. We happen to be anchored next to Ralph and Vipka now, so we miss you even
Are
more.
you? Okay.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that would be. Wouldn't that be fun? Last time we saw you was in Oyster Bay, wasn't it?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Sounds right. All right. Stay safe.
Thanks. Nice to talk to you.
This is a world shrinking webinar for sure.
I know, it's lovely, isn't it?
It's amazing. I mean, yeah, it's mind blowing.
Amazing.
Know people.
Guys, you've been talking now for around 3/4 because we started at quarter to 8 effectively. But thank you so much. It's been a lovely presentation. I don't see any more hands up at the moment, and apart from comments in the chat, I don't think anybody wants to come in. But if they do, then please put your hand up or open your microphone if you already can. Lars is coming back in, I think.
Yeah, just a quick, you guys mentioned about you didn't know about the OCC. When we took off 2017, before we left Sweden, in our local ocean sailing club, one guy was very warmly recommending OCC. So it was sort of on our to-do list to make an application, but we never came to it. And then when we came up to Bergen on the west coast of Norway, we saw a British boat, I think the name was Terrapin or something, 30-foot something boat.
Terrapin is Baxter and Molly.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw the OCC flag and said, oh, yeah, that's right. We need to make an application. And the guy who recommended us had promised to be our sponsor. So we did the application. And then a week or two later, we were up in Kristiansund or somewhere up further north on the Norwegian coast. And it was very early in the season, so there was not many boats. So again, it was just us and Terrapin. And they came we hadn't even talked to them, and they just came walking on the dock and said, oh, here's the new neighbors, welcome to the club. So they had seen the notice on the OCC website or Facebook already that we had become the new member. So yeah, it's an amazing club, and we have enjoyed it so much over all the years we've been cruising, definitely.
I've met many good friends through that.
And Baxter is the kind of ultimate adventurer, because when he was cruising that summer in Norway, he was flying in a wingsuit off places like the Troll Wall. And,
oh my goodness!
Oh my God! Okay. Right.
He describes himself as an expert in risk management. That's super. Look, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We look forward to entertaining you on the west coast of Scotland, maybe in April, May, if you happen to be passing that way. In June, we're going to be back in the Pacific, so you'll have to put your skates on to catch us up.
It'll be April or early May. So.
Oh right, so we then do shouts. Yeah, we should be able to drive to you if you're not actually passing us.
Okay.
So
That'd be great.
It'd be great to catch up with you. I see our port officer for the for opening the Hebrides was online earlier. I think he's dropped off now, but Bob Shepton, of course, is our port officer up there. So we'll make sure he's involved as well. But
I'd love to meet the Reverend
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. Great evening. Really interested in the boat building side of things. Gosh, in awe of the expertise, not just your expertise, but everybody. You know, Reese a few weeks ago putting a rusting hulk back together to create a work of beauty. You starting with a flat pack, and just absolutely amazing. And you documented all that on your website, I think.
The Odyssey Yachts is there's, if you go to the archive, it has, I don't know how many hundred entries.
Well, and I am writing a book.
So, yeah, Brian's trying to.
I've got 100,000 words written, and I just need to finish editing it and put all the photos with it. So,
fantastic.
Yeah. So fantastic. That's a project. That's a winter project.
A great project.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon.
I've enjoyed it, Simon. That was
all
great.
right. Good night, guys. Good night, everybody.
Ralph, Vibeke, see you next week.
Yep.
I think they've. Yep. Ralph next week. Yep. Bye
now.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yep.
And I'll chat to you on Sunday, Ralph, for your run through.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night.